And welcome to another episode of Unzipped with Sherry with yours truly. This is Sherry. This I thought was going to be an interesting topic to address social media and what are the positive and negative effects of social media. So, first and foremost, welcome to Unzipped with Sherry, the podcast where tonight we are going to dive deep into the wild, weird, sometimes wacky world of social media. You know, that place where everyone's life is perfect except for the constant existential dread. Um, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of social media because let's face it, we all love it, we all hate it, and we all secretly wonder if we're going to survive without it. And if the last couple of days has proven anything, it's that a lot of people cannot survive without it. And so one of the things that I have learned over the years is that when it came to social media, there's almost like this strange addiction that comes with it. There's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows. And so I kind of thought it would be important to kind of delve into both the pros and cons. There's people that I know personally that don't have a single social media app, nothing, not Facebook, not MySpace, not nothing. And they think that social media is the devil. And then there are other people, friends of mine, that rely heavily on it, whether it's for their businesses, whether it's for the community aspect of it. And I have been part of social media since the days of MySpace and Facebook, and then all the different transitions that we've gotten. But I noticed that it was a lot more limited back in the day. Like when I was really active on Facebook, I would make my posts, and especially after my surgery, I would make a lot of motivational posts. I would do like a lot of blogging, but it wasn't like a all day, every day kind of thing. Like I would respond to comments, and I remember being part of some of the community chats on Facebook, and it was great. Like it was very uplifting and supportive. But then it started to get like really toxic at times, especially in this bariatric community where people would like condemn what you were eating, or if you were too thin, or if you weren't losing fast enough. And it was this constant comparison. But on the Facebook side, I didn't really dive too much into it because at least with Facebook, there's a lot of back in the day, like political arguments or whatever the hot button item was at the time. But when I came to TikTok about 2.5 years ago now, like when I became active on TikTok, it was this overnight change in my life. Like I found myself being part of this community. I found myself on it every single day religiously, figuring out what content I was going to post, figuring out like why I wasn't getting very many views. And then I was doing live streams where you can like talk with other people. And there were times where like I all of a sudden noticed that the activity on my phone was greatly increasing. And the last couple of days when I listened to a lot of people talking about the impending doom of TikTok, it occurred to me like how many of us at once had come to TikTok at different times, all looking for the same thing. We were looking for some sense of belonging, some sense of a community, some sense of, just being heard and seen. And I think what started happening is once we were being seen on a regular basis, it created like this fire. It created like this almost like a transfer addiction or some kind of an addiction where you craved it. You're getting something that you've never had either before or for a very long time. And then you were actively searching for it. And I think over the last 2.5 years, I think that it's almost turned into almost a full addiction at some point. Hey, Beth. And during this podcast, I want you guys, because we're live. I know people watching this later are not going to be able to leave comments. You can in the videos afterwards. But if you have questions or concerns, or you want to be part of the conversation, I want you guys to be part of this conversation. I think it's also really important too, because I saw that the panic that we had for days with that whole TikTok debacle, that it really opened my eyes more so than usual as to how, in some ways, how toxic this app can really be. Like it was messing with people's mental headspace. It was almost like if TikTok went away, they were never going to be able to have a conversation again. They were never going to be able to do anything again. And I remember leading up to this impending doom, I kept saying that I didn't think it was going to happen. Hey, Angie. And I think that it was catch. I kept saying that I didn't think it was going to happen, but you know what? I said the same thing about the pandemic too. I remember when the pandemic and there was talks of a shutdown. I'm like, they're not going to shut down the country. Like, that is insane. Like, never in the history of our lives have we ever shut down an entire country because of a virus. And then sure enough, it happened. And so I think that when people were talking about this impending doom, I kept thinking the same thing. Like, no, this is not going to happen. Like, they're at the 11th hour, they're going to find a solution. It's going to be fine. It's going to be mass panic. And then all of a sudden it went dark and people freaked the fuck out. Like, it was absolutely insane. And I remember being affected by it because I remember, like, for the 14 hours that it went dark for Americans, I kept picking up my phone just as a natural habit. I would just keep clicking. No, it doesn't work, multiple times a day. And that's when I realized that day that it went dark that I had a serious addiction to an app on my phone. But it was more than just an app where you can like comment like in a discussion board. There was real people on the other side of that, and real people that I made real connections with. And some people I have not had a chance to meet in person. Some people, like, you only have these conversations on this app on a live stream or in comments back and forth or commenting on other people's videos. But like, I realized that, yes, as much as it was creating an addiction and there was negative impacts of it, there was also so much beauty that came with it. And so I kind of made like this little checklist of the positives and the negatives of social media in general. I think a lot of it's been applied more so to TikTok in my life because I've been more active on TikTok than on other apps. So as I'm going through the list here that I put together, like, I want to hear your comments. Is it something that you guys agree with? Is it something that you guys don't agree with? I want to know, because I know that I'm not alone in the amount of energy and time that we put into these apps. But I want to make sure that we're always staying in the right mindset, because I have noticed for me personally, it has affected my mindset and it has uplifted my mindset in the same day. It could be even in the same conversation. And I think that's kind of unprecedented compared to other apps that we've had out there, especially if you're a 40s baby or like an 80s and 90s kid where we didn't have social media as kids. We played outside till the lights went out. We had face-to-face social interaction. And if we had bullies or if we had comments being made to us, they were made to our face on the playground. They weren't made behind a keyboard. So I think for people, and I could be wrong, let me know in the comments what you guys think, but I feel like in some cases, because we do know better, we've had a different experience growing up, I do find it to be harder to navigate through as an adult. I think it's extremely damaging for the young people right now, but I also feel like the young people are going into their lives with this already part of that experience. So there's a level of expectation or kind of being prepared for it in some manner. But I think as adults, like, we were not prepared. I was not prepared to be bullied at like 43 years old or anything like that. But one of the positives that I have found with social media is inspiration and motivation. Watching people's transformation stories. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like a weight loss related thing. Watching people overcome something amazing or some kind of an amazing feat and being able to follow their journey and having them document it, kind of like this video version of blogging. You know, blogging used to be really big back in the day, and everybody and their brother and sister had blogs. And I don't see much of that anymore. It's more like these video blogs, and people do it on YouTube or TikTok and everywhere else too. But I think that there's something uplifting in watching somebody overcome something amazing and being able to be inspired by that. So oftentimes before social media, we often felt isolated and alone in things that we were going through, whether we were going through health issues or weight issues or family issues or self-esteem, confidence, whatever the case may be. We oftentimes thought that we were alone and that nobody can relate. Then you come to a social media app and you find out that there's people just like you who are going through the same struggles. And when you can watch somebody who's at a further level up than you, it gives you hope. It gives you, okay, if that person was able to overcome that, then I can overcome this too. And I think that there's something really beautiful about that because it gives people this encouragement and hope that they might not have had otherwise. It's hard to be put down and bullied by someone on the other side of the screen instead of just saying it to a face. It feels cowardly of them. I agree. I think that I think that because we have keyboard warriors, we're afraid of confrontation. The average person is definitely afraid of confrontation. And so I find that people have a lot more strength when they're not being seen and they can't be physically harmed in any way in that moment, that it gives them like this extra encouragement to bully someone else or make them feel bad. I also, side note, I'm really tired of the phrase hurt people. I don't believe that. Hurt people do not hurt people. Weak people hurt people. People who are not afraid to look at their own reflection and see the error in their own ways and start to tear other people down in order to make themselves feel better or feel higher on a food chain. Those are weak people. They do not have the strength to pick themselves up and go forward. So they have to rely on trying to tear you down. So here's the thing, we're all hurt people, but not all hurt people hurt people. Weak people hurt people. Just food for thought. Side note. Um, One of the other positives of social media is the educational content of it. I joke all the time that I get my news from TikTok now. I find so much stuff like learning how to make recipes, learning how to, you know, I think I was looking when when the window in my car broke. I remember turning to TikTok and looking up like how to fix a window or how to fix a garbage disposal or whatever. Like there were so many free resources out there on how to learn how to do things, whether it's, you know, getting insight on how to have mental strength, on mental health, on nutrition. There's so much fitness stuff out there. There's so much like, there's so many podcast clips out there. And I've learned so much about the most random stuff on social media. And so I think that it's a wealth of knowledge. I do think that sometimes we can rely too heavily on that, to try to get news instead of picking up a book, or I don't think anybody even knows what a library is anymore. Um, but I think that there's so many things, like you can literally type in anything like, how do you make sourdough bread? And there are tons of videos on how to do that. I was a tomboy growing up, and I started watching like some makeup tutorials, and then I started learning from TikTok on how to play around with makeup and try different things like fashion tips. I'm not a fashionable person like at all. And not even just that, like I said, like there's fitness things on there. There's so many things that you can learn, that I think that that's such a huge positive, because it keeps us away from having like this narrow-minded things, or you can no longer use the excuse, I don't know how to do it, so I can't do it. Yeah, people sharing their arts, crafts, their trades. There's something just really cool about that. Like I never had a desire to want to learn how to make my own milks and I started seeing videos on TikTok about people making their own milks out of almond milk or oat milk, or making their own milkshakes and stuff. And it wasn't until I realized that I had food allergies, and I have food allergies to corn and soy, and everything has corn and soy in it. So being able to be, I don't want to say persuaded, but watching these videos, I'm like, this is a lot easier than I thought. And I was able to get a nut maker, kind of a nut milk contraption thing, and I made my own like almond milk, and it was absolutely amazing. And yeah, you're going to learn and do tweaks here and there, but like I said, I've learned so much. And like back in the day it was YouTube, but I've learned more from, I don't know, maybe it's because I spent more time on TikTok specifically, but I've learned so many different tips and tricks on how to do things. The number 3 is probably my favorite positive part of it, is the community and support that you can get on social media. It connects like-minded individuals who uplift and support each other. Engaging with groups that share your goals can provide encouragement and accountability. I was just talking with this earlier with I was doing a Zoom session, and I was like, if you had told me 3 years ago that I would be flailing my arms around like some wannabe Richard Simmons, shaking my ass in front of strangers and leading a workout, I would have told you that you're batshit crazy. I was the person who sat in a couch and I could not get myself off the couch. I would have to reach out my arm and have somebody pull me up to help me up. And to think that just a few years later, I'm facilitating like workouts with people. And that's because of community. I came to TikTok very depressed, lonely, isolated. I thought that nobody can relate to me. No one was going to get it. And I just found like a family of people. I found people who struggled with the same things that I did. I found people who had similar upbringing experiences that I did. I found people who had the same struggles with weight and confidence and self-esteem that I did. And it was so nice to just be able to talk with people who just get it, who know exactly what you're, going through. And I remember, like, when I had my surgery, my husband Eric, he was the most supportive person. Like, he bent over backwards for me. He catered to me, like hand and foot. He brought the recliner into our bedroom so that we can still sleep in the same room while I was recovering. He would purposely cook himself dinner and leave me in the room and close the door, and he would eat on the other end of the house so that I wouldn't even smell it. Like, he truly bent over backwards to be as supportive as he could, because he truly supported my decision to have surgery. But with that being said, I joke all the time. He didn't understand why on day 3 I was crying over a Little Caesars commercial. And he'd be like, "Sherry, it's a commercial." And I'm like, "Yeah, but there's a nacho cheese pizza, there's a pretzel crust, and I'm never gonna eat again, and my life is over." And I just like had this full-blown meltdown. And he just could not comprehend that. And it wasn't until years later, like talking to people on TikTok, like they got it, like they understood. It's like, did I think that I was ever going to eat it again? Yes. But in that moment, it's like you lived your whole life drawn to food as a coping mechanism. And now you don't have that anymore. And when I went through surgery, I was on my own. I didn't have people to talk to about it. I didn't know about the hair loss. I didn't know about, how your blood pressure and your hormone levels can change. And I Googled everything. And I always thought that I was freaking dying or had some rare disease, and I became a hypochondriac. And it turns out it was normal. And I didn't know it was normal until years later, when you're part of these communities, like these bariatric communities on TikTok or at one point Facebook, where I was like, oh my God, that was fucking normal. Like, I wish I had known then what I know now. And had it not been for this community and support, there's a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have handled, long term. I probably would have crumbled. And being able to share goals with one another and being able to hype people up and find your tribe and motivate and lift each other up. My closest friends now are through a computer screen, and that's just like completely crazy. Like, it's crazy when you grow up in a world where you played outside all day with the neighborhood kids and you guys were all best friends. Like, I'm still best friends with kids that I played kickball with when I was a kid, and I talk to them less than I talk to people from TikTok. And it's not just bariatric people, it's just in general. Like, as you grow and your personalities change and you level up in life, you start attracting the kind of mindset that you have. And over the years, as my mindset has progressed, I started attracting more like-minded people. And now some of my favorite parts of the day is going live on TikTok and doing a MOBA challenge and having my friends up there with me doing bicep curls or hip thrusts or wall sits. Because one, I'm with a bunch of people who've never been able to do this before, and now they're doing it. And watching people, conquer dreams that they never had is like the biggest, I don't know, it's like the biggest bucket filler for me personally. So had we not had these kind of apps and stuff, I don't know how much different it would be. I know for a fact MOBA wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for TikTok. TikTok is what put MOBA on the map and made it relevant and made it like accepted and supported and, marketed and everything. Yeah, you know what I mean? That would not have happened if it wasn't for social media. I was not successful with it until I came to social media. So being able to, as a result of all of this, being able to build a community together is one of the greatest assets that's ever come of TikTok for me. And the other thing is personal branding and self-expression. One of the things that I love witnessing on TikTok, and I've seen it happen a lot of times now in the last 2.5 years, is coming across somebody who's messaged me and they're like, I can't make videos. Like, I'm really shy and I don't know how to make a video, and I don't want to put my stuff out there. Like, no one can relate. And I've always told them there is no pressure. Just because you join some kind of an app, that there's no obligation that you have to post videos and put your shit out there. But I said, when the time comes, and if you feel it's right, I promise you, it will. You might be surprised on what happens from it. I think that you're going to find the support that you need, because when you put yourself out there and you share your experiences, people are going to resonate with that. You might get haters. I mean, that's part of the negatives and stuff like that. But for the most part, I've gotten messages from people who they're like, Sherry, I made my first video. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden, now they're flourishing and they're doing lives and they're doing challenges and they're putting themselves out there. And all of a sudden, because they were so afraid on how they were going to be judged. And look, like we know, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But when you find your people, it's, and being able to be your true, authentic self. I think people who've struggled with weight their whole lives or any kind of self-esteem issues have always felt like they had to conform to somebody else's view of them and like how other people wanted them to be. And I think that TikTok specifically gave people a way to be their authentic self and be accepted for their authentic self. Now, are you going to get millions and millions of followers depending on how you put yourself out there? Not necessarily, but you're going to find people. But you're going to find people who are accepting you in your true self. And that's what this is all about, is being able to, be who you are and not worry about judgment, and finding people that can love you just who you are and don't have this expectation or a desire to try to mold you in what they think that you should be. They're accepting you exactly as you are. Beth says, because we are a community that is knocking shit out, shit we wouldn't do without social media. 100%. MOBA would, like I said, it would not exist had it not been for TikTok. And had I not done that 75 hard challenge and people wanted to do a challenge with me, like we would not be doing this 2.5 years later. Beth also says, yes, your life is someone else's survival guide. 100%. Whatever you are going through in life, I don't care what it is or how obscure it is, you are not the only person who has ever been affected by this. You are not the only person who has ever gone through this. And so the best way to heal, in my opinion, in some cases, is to put your story out there and be heard, because somebody will resonate it. Somebody is either going to resonate with it who's already been there and overcome it and can give you tips and tricks on how to get there themselves, or somebody else is going to be further behind than you are, and they're going to look at your story and they're going to be inspired by it, and they can see that you are pushing through, then they too can push through. And I love that. I love that sometimes we feel so lost in life and we feel so unseen, and we're the ones that sat in the back of the class and constantly felt just never seen. I don't know how to say that in a different way. And to all of a sudden be able to put videos out there and be seen and be heard and have people like want to have a conversation with you and want to get to know you and brings you. I can't tell you how many people I have personally witnessed come out of their shells because of social media, because they found their people, they found belonging, they found acceptance. Yes, I felt stuck at times and people didn't know how to take me because I'm a wild one. I have found so many who accept me. I was a conformer for many years. I based my personality and my attitude around whoever I was with at the time. I constantly lived in a world where I lived in other people's worlds. And sometimes I would try to let my true self come out a little bit, whether it's quirky or nerdy or I'm a conspiracy theorist. Like there's different facets of my life. And I've gotten dirty looks from people, or I've gotten like snubbed, or, oh, you're airy fairy or whatever. The minute you mention Mercury in retrograde and people just fucking roll their eyes at you and think that they should burn you at the stake. And I like to TikTok, I'm able to just go out there and say, this is who I am. This is what I'm into. This is what I do. And if people don't like it, they can scroll on. There's no obligation to follow me or to like my shit or to engage with me. You have the option to just scroll on and move past, because there are people who are going to want to stop and stick around. And so for those who have stopped and stuck around, it means the fucking world to me. And I will keep showing up as long as there's people, that want to have me. Um, One of the other positives is access to experts and mentors. This, I think, is really an amazing feature because being in the bariatric community specifically, I've like gotten to know people who are nutritionists, who are fitness trainers, who are mental health coaches, and being able to have professionals offering guidance and leadership and ideas and tips and tricks, and being able to talk to professionals about different things. Like I've seen like there's times where I've googled things because I've had legal questions, and being able to find legal experts on TikTok like talking about their craft and talking about my specific situation or whatever, or finding like I started Googling things about, corn allergies or soy allergies, and finding a plethora of resources from people who were experts. And it's kind of like, instead of trying to find, you know, $50 for a copay every single time, although I always say that always consult with a medical professional, like actually go physically in person for medical issues considering yourself. But if it's not a life-threatening emergency and I just have general questions, it's been nice for me to be able to go and find professionals online and just kind of see, like, and just kind of test the theory. Like, I wonder if that applies to me. And then you try it and you're like, oh my God, I'm not bloated today. Like, look at that. And so I think that, being able to have like this plethora of resources is just going to help us with our personal growth. Did you know the term keyboard warrior really came about in the late 90s, early 2000s when the internet really became available? So these weak people have been at it for a bit now. That's so true. We're going to get into the negatives in a second. And I guess a segue is, I remember my first troll actually came on MySpace. If anybody remembers MySpace, there was an app, or there was like some kind of a application on MySpace where you would get coins or whatever. And like you can give people an anonymous message, and they would have to do things to get coins. And you needed a certain amount of coins to be able to reveal a hint on who the person was that sent you this anonymous message. And I remember getting an anonymous message that said that I was a whale, who was never going to lose weight, and like made a comment about who I was with at the time. Fucking like stunned me because I had not had that from behind a keyboard. Now, I've been called fat my whole life, not from an anonymous, a faceless stranger. Eventually I found out who it was, and she was a psycho bitch, but I'm not worried about it. But at the time, like, that really affected me. How could somebody who I don't know have such a negative impact and instantly put me, like, that fucked me up for days trying to figure out who it was and why would they. Now, it didn't matter the positive comments that I've gotten on MySpace, the area where coding our own pages in and didn't even know it was code 100%. Like, we were doing like basic HTML back then, and like also had no idea. And I remember, I think MySpace was the first time that I noticed negative impacts along with the positives, because I remember the hellfire you would pay if you took one of your people off of your top 8. Do you remember when you would have like a top 8? Like, if I had Beth as like my number 1, and you would throw shade. If Beth and I had gotten into a fight in 1999 or 2000 or whatever, and she pissed me off that day, I probably would have taken her from the number 1 spot to the number 3 or 4 spot. And that would have derailed her, and it would have pissed her off. And then something so stupid as changing a space. And I couldn't believe, like, how it all of a sudden it would put people in this weird tizzy. Like, that's not real life. That's not like how it's supposed to be. And I don't know. I just found that, like, that was the first time I started noticing like the negative impact. And that one of those is the negativity and trolling that you get. That is not negative. Trolling on TikTok is not new. Trolling has been going on since the days of Instant Messenger and AIM. I started using Instant Messenger in the AOL chat rooms. Yes, ASL. I was just going to say that. Age, sex, location. And I remember being 13 years old And I would get messages, ASL, and I'm like, oh my God, 13, Woodland Hills, and, age, female, 13, Woodland Hills. And then they're like, yeah, I'm 56. And you're like, why are you talking to me? I don't understand. I'm a naive 13-year-old. And then you start, that kind of started a whole nother trajectory of social media and stuff like that. But I remember getting negative comments. I was so naive in the AOL chat rooms. Okay, Angie. So Angie says that if I had taken Beth off in 2004 or whatever and replaced her to my bottom three, that Angie would put her to number one. And I'm telling you right now, those are fighting words, and you are trying to mess with my mental headspace right now, and it's not going to happen. We are going to rise above it. And for that, you have now just moved from the number two spot. You have gone down to number 7 or 8 for the day. I'll probably bump you up tomorrow because I actually do love you. But trolling is really hard because, and we see it happen all the time today. It's not new. Like I said, we've been getting people trolling us from back in the instant messenger days, from the MySpace days, from the AOL chat rooms, from Facebook, from Social Circle, or whatever like these apps were before that. Like, trolling is nothing new. But what happens is we met in regards to our mindset, it really puts us in a really dark place. And this is something that I've had it happen to myself, and I've watched other people go through it. And it does not matter. You can have 100 comments saying, I love you, I think you're amazing, you're incredible, but you get that one troller who says something toxic, and that is the one that we fixate on the most. Now, psychologically, I would love to have like a psychologist on the podcast, and maybe we can talk about the psychology behind social media and mindset with a professional. Like, so if you know anybody, I would love to have that conversation, because I want to know why that happens, why we fixate on the 1% and not the 99%. Is it something that's ingrained in our heads? Is it something that we've been conditioned our entire lives? Is it just based on our prior self-esteem issues that come flooding to the surface? And it's so hard. And when that kind of stuff happens, it puts us in a negative headspace. And then what happens? So somebody gives us a trolling comment. So then we want to, they're a keyboard warrior. So they're typing from behind a computer. So we make a video and we call them out, and we rally our troops to come and defend us for calling them out. All we're doing is we're giving them power. We just publicly admitted, you got under my skin. You hurt my feelings. And now I'm calling you out to let you know that you affected me. So what happens? They're going to do it again, because now they know exactly how to get you, and they're going to do it again. Then you're going to make another clap back. And then what's going to happen? Someone's like, well, how come I'm never being seen or heard? Oh, you know what? But maybe if I leave a negative comment, then I'll get attention. Then I'll get like a shout out. So then more people start to troll you and start to bash you, because now it's almost like they want to be part of the cool club. They want a personal shout out from you, even if it's the negative attentions, like the child who's acting out because they just want any kind of attention, good or bad. You are giving it to them. So then all you're doing is you're constantly putting out there, I want negative attention. I want you to troll me. I want you to be negative, because you're fueling me to keep making more content and keep attracting the same pattern of behavior. And Angie, I get it. Like, it's the people pleaser in us. And I don't know. I wish that there was a way that you can just like, shake people and get them to listen. Like, don't clap back at people. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I can tell you, I have so many times in the last 2.5 years specifically have wanted to call people out who wanted to, match their energy and treat them the way that they treated me, like off camera or whatever. And I know that if I had done that, I would have attracted more. I would have I would have showed them that they got under my skin, and they would have continued to do it more. There was one person specifically who was notorious for trolling people and for using it for self-clout to, propel their own account. And everyone fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Everyone started clapping back to this person, and it would just keep growing, and they would just keep growing. And when it happened to me, I didn't say a word. It bothered me, and I spiraled for a little bit behind the cameras, but I never publicly clapped back. I never publicly was negative. I just showed up like nothing ever happened. That person would send me private messages while I was live, like doing live talking with my friends, and try to rattle my cages. And I didn't respond. And it lasted a couple of days, never heard from that person again. Whereas other people dealt with it for weeks, if not months, because they kept feeding the fire, they kept fueling it. And if you learn, and I get it, have you noticed that some of the biggest influencers use drama to get there? 100%. Look, okay, and how many of us watch positive, uplifting reality shows? No, you watch the fucking Kardashians and you watch personality train wrecks. That's what sells. Drama sells. I just watched the documentary that came out on Netflix about the Jerry Springer show. Craziness sells. Drama, negativity, that's what people draw to. And I think one of the reasons that we're so drawn to it is because we all feel like we're derailing in life and we all feel that we're shit shows. And watching somebody else's shit show makes us feel better. I think, I don't know, maybe it just brings us some kind of comfort or something like that. So we're attracted to this negative stuff. Also, maybe because, like I said, we're now in a society of like Jerry Springer. We never had that kind of show before. We never, not when Cops came out, and Cops was all the rage because you would see these stereotypes, in these situations. And it was just like, my God, like this is only made for TV. Like this can't be real life, but we were drawn to it. We're drawn for some reason as a society, we are drawn to the downfall of others again, because it makes us feel a little bit better about our current situation in our day. And I think there's a lot of quote unquote influencers. I don't consider you an influencer just because you have millions of followers. I consider you, lucky because you have a lot of followers, but you're not really influencing a bunch of people if they're only coming to you for tea or for dirt or to, just see what's the train wreck of the day going to be. And I do think that there are some quote unquote influencers who've learned how to capitalize that. Like there's a reason that Kardashians was a really, really high rated show versus other shows out there. It's because we like the drama. So they know how to capitalize on that. So I think that there's influencers that will purposely create drama that doesn't exist, that will create situations that are irrelevant or have nothing to do just to get recognition, just to get people talking, just to get people to come to your page. And to be honest, like when it comes to my page, I'm not an influencer. Like I think to a certain extent, I can be considered an influencer. Followers wise, I don't have the kind of following that other people have. Like I have friends that have 1 million followers. I have friends that have more than 1 million followers. I have less than 5,000, which for some people, that's a lot. For me, that's enough. Like I'm good for right now. Like eventually I'd like to grow a little bit just because of MOBA, but I don't know if I can handle that. But my growth has been so slow. But I also get a lot more activity on mine because mine is very positive. It's more mindset based. It's more fun. Now, if back in the day I had decided to dive into the drama that was being addressed, and if I had put myself out there and if I started doing the clapbacks and doing, yeah, my account would have grown overnight. Guaranteed. I don't want followers who are showing up to watch my downfall. I don't want followers who are following me to watch me crumble and watch me crack. I want people to come across my thing and smile for the day or find something motivating or decide to get a workout in that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Like that's the kind of impact that I want to have. I don't need a number to distinguish the impact that I'm having on people's lives. I know people who had 14, 15,000 followers and they were a piece of shit. And people saw right through it, but they only showed up because they know they were going to watch a train wreck. That's not something that I personally want, but I get it's a business thing for people. People make money. And the more followers you have, the more money you can make. And I've always been one that I've been put in questionable situations in jobs in order to make money. And I've turned it down. I would rather make a money knowing that I can put my head down at night and sleep better than to sell my soul just to make a couple of bucks, because that can always get taken away tomorrow. Money can always disappear tomorrow. So that's not something that I want. One of the other downsides when it comes to social media is a mental overload and distraction. And I have endless scrolling can overwhelm the mind with information, leading to decision fatigue, procrastination, and lack of focus. I think this one is so true And I know that anybody watching this right now, if you tell me this has not happened to you, you're a fucking liar. Where you say you're going to go to bed, you're like, I'm just going to scroll. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm just going to scroll a couple minutes and then I'm going to knock out. The next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you've gotten these notifications on TikTok. Like your eyes must be getting sleepy. Like that means you've been scrolling so much that TikTok recognizes you should probably put the fucking phone down and go get some sleep. And there's something about it. It stimulates our brain. So people say do not be scrolling late at night because it's going to make, it harder to fall asleep. And I can tell you that happens to me all the time. I always say just a couple minutes, just one more. Just maybe it's the old fat kid in me. Like just one more and it's going to be fine. Then what happens is that decision can derail the rest of your day the next day, because if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not having enough energy, then you're finding yourself, the more that you're on social media, the more that you're addicted to it, the more that you want to scroll. I have found myself at times where, like when I was at work, on my breaks, I'm scrolling. On my lunch break, I'm scrolling. I get home, I'm scrolling. I make dinner, I'm scrolling. I'm talking to my friends and I'm scrolling while I'm talking to my friends, because you don't want to miss anything that's happening on social media. And it can become extremely toxic. Um, and it can make you tired. And the more tired that it's making us mentally, the more that we're unable to do our regular everyday life, um, and prevent us from doing what we need to do to be a better version of ourselves. If we're constantly fatigued, we don't have the energy to do anything else. Now we're just becoming like conditioned to just the base mundane of life, like just the basic necessities of staying alive. And we're not being motivated to go out and do other things. So for a lot of people, and this is further proof, when you watched how many people derailed for 14 hours because TikTok was gone, that showed me that as a culture, we are highly addicted. The fact that the next day, that when the day that it was black, I can't tell you how many times I clicked on the app out of habit, not because I was consciously choosing to go to TikTok, out of habit. Oh shit, it's gone. And then you try to go back to, and then like literally minutes later, oh fuck, I forgot that it was gone. Like it has become extremely detrimental to, self-care when we become so consumed by it. Um, this is one that's hard for people to handle, but another downside of social media is the toxic positivity and fake success. Now, this is not just from TikTok. This I've seen from the days of Instagram and then Facebook and then MySpace, where people promote out there what they want you to see. We, up until TikTok has kind of given people permission to be more honest with their struggles and what they're going through. But prior to that, we were notorious for posting content. We only posted when we were in a good mood. We only posted something that was positive. Went to the gym today. We didn't post that it was the first day in 6 months because we were spiraling into depression or whatever. But we're like, hey, I went to the gym today. Like, hey, here's my healthy meal. Doesn't matter that the 6 pounds of food that we ate prior to that because we were binging, but here's my happy meal, or here's me and my partner. It's our anniversary. Not talking about you guys have not been living together for a long time. It was all about putting up fake appearances and giving people a false representation of yourselves. It was like that we were using social media as a way to live in a Sims. Like if anybody remembers like the Sims games, it was like we wanting to create this part of us that we wished we had. And I don't know, maybe if it was like, if we put it out there enough and lied about it enough, that maybe it would come to fruition. And I think it gave people a false sense of reality in our lives. I remember when I made our post, when Eric and I got separated the very first time, and I made a long post on Facebook, and it was not a negative post. Eric and I were, we had accepted it, and we were still trying to be on good terms because we still had love for each other. And I wrote like a post about how we were often compared to Ricky and Lucy and Desi, and even Lucy and Desi had not been married. They had gotten divorced even while they were making the show, but they still remained the best of friends until they both died. And so I had made like this very positive post. People had no idea. People had no idea that we had been struggling, that we had had issues, because we never put it out there. we only put positive stuff, birthday posts, or we would post pictures together. Like, and it was just a way of not wanting to talk about it. Well, you never played, Angie? I'm actually surprised that Beth even knows what Sims is. Kudos to you, my friend. Um, and so what happens is when people see a false sense of who you are, they create, these expectations of you based on what you're portraying. You're only putting out a certain facet of your life or a certain part of yourself. And people create an unrealistic expectation on how you're supposed to be. And I've had it happen where on social media, I am extremely peppy. Like I said, I'm a wannabe Richard Simmons energy level. When I do MOBA challenges, I call people out on their shit, and like we have fun and we laugh, and I do have a good sense of humor. But when I'm in large groups, I'm shy. Like I am more reserved. I'm more of a people watcher. Um, I don't constantly like attention on me because there's still an old part of me that used to get negative attention, for being over 350 pounds. So there's still a part of me that kind of stays off to the corner, and I'm getting better at it. But I've had it happen where I am portrayed as exuding all of this confidence. I'm portrayed as being a badass or being intimidating. And then people meet me in person and I'm more reserved and shy. And I've actually had people in the past be almost disappointed that I didn't live up to this idea that they put on me based on videos and live feeds. And I think that happens on a regular basis. When it comes to social media, we put what we want to post. Some of us post our struggles. Some of us are very honest of it. Some of us keep it more hidden and we try to focus more on the positive. But people are only getting glimpses of us. They're basing entire personality character profiles based on a couple of minutes here and there, a couple minute video, or maybe a 10-20 minute live. And they're creating this entire idea of you. And then we become disappointed because they're not living up to this expectation, an unrealistic expectation that we placed on them. And so there's also people that like to promote themselves to be more than they really are. It's kind of like the people that are overly cocky. Like the people who are the most cocky are usually, in my opinion, the most insecure, because they are spending their whole lives trying to convince everybody that they're something that they're not. And because those who are truly confident don't have to promote their confidence, they're just confident. People who overly have to tell you what their credentials are or what their qualifications are, people that have to constantly like repeat like how important they are, they're not. Because if you were all of these things, the proof is in the pudding. Like you wouldn't have to promote it like that. And so what I love being yelled at by an emote or character when I forgot to feed her. Oh my God, I fucking love this. So I think when it comes to meeting people off of social media, we have to be careful that these are still regular, everyday people that have true, genuine feelings. And just because you get a sense of who you think they are based on your interpretation on the snippets that they provide for you, does not mean it's always going to be 100% factual. There are a handful of people that I have met in person that I was very, very drawn to, on the camera when we did lives and stuff. And then when I met them in person, they were nothing like who they portrayed themselves to be. They were the total opposite. And I realized they use social media as a ruse to make themselves feel like they are of a certain way. And after a while, you can hide. You can make a couple minute videos. You can do a live for 10 minutes and then go be who you truly are. But you can't hide it in person for too long. Eventually, like the cracks that the cracks are going to show through in your foundation and it's going to come crumbling. So that's one negative downside, is that it kind of it promotes this unrealistic expectation. And then what happens is when they create this unrealistic expectation, people are looking at that and then thinking that they themselves are failures. Well, so-and-so is doing all these things and I'm a failure because I don't have the energy or the time or the money to be able to accomplish these things. And the truth is sometimes you're probably more far successful than they are. And you have to remember that, because not everybody is who they say that they are. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of like when we would have the catfishing on AOL Instant Messenger. You know, people would tell you that their ASL was that they were also 13 years old, but we know damn well that they were not 13 years old too, because their grammar was far better than a 13-year-old at the time. And so it can be physically dangerous. It can be emotionally damaging at the same time by putting it all out there. One of the other negative thing, and I think I felt victim to this too, was this dopamine dependency. The instant gratification of likes and comments can create a need for external validation, making self-worth dependent on social approval. I myself in the past have posted videos that I put a lot of effort into it. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so great. Like, people are going to love this. And it only got like 10 likes, or only got like 100 views. And I don't know why, but it just, it's almost like you're thinking that the world is against you. The world does not approve you. The world does not like you because you did not make it to the algorithm or something like that. Or, you go on live and you only got 5 viewers watching, and then people just start derailing. Why am I not popular? How come so and so gets 500 people watching their lives, but when I go live, I only get 6 people? And then you start to self-deprecate and question your self-worth. There was a million reasons why. If you don't have very many followers, it's not going to push it out. Or if you're, at the time of day that you're doing, or whatever, when you make those videos, how you use hashtags or whatever, like, I just feel like it sucks, because I think a lot of us have struggled more with self-esteem issues as a result of social media, because we base our validation on who we are, on whether strangers on the internet like our videos or send us hearts on a live, or whatever the case may be. And in the very beginning, I was the same way. I would get bummed out if I didn't get very many views on a video, or if people were not liking my posts, or if I was going live and only 3 people were watching. Like, it would affect my mood to the point where it's like, I don't even want to do this anymore. And now I've gotten to a place where when I do the MOBA challenges, there are times it was just Beth and I. In the last month or two, there was a handful of challenges. It was literally just Beth and I and 3 people watching. And on one hand, it started to get to me because there was a time before I took a break where we would have 20, 30 people watching. Our panels were full. We had 9 box lives, and we were roaring strong. And then all of a sudden, it's just Beth and I doing some push-ups and, a couple people watching. But then I got to a point where I was like, I'm not doing it for the hundreds of people that could have I'm watching for the people who showed up for me. I'm showing up for them. And there has been a shift since then. I no longer care about the views that I get or how many people are watching my lives, because what matters is the people who are still showing up, the people who are active, who want to hear what I have to say on that given day, or the ones that want to contribute to a challenge or to a conversation, or if I'm going live and I'm putting product together and people are, buying product and stuff. Those are the people that I am showing up for. Now, I would love down the road to expand and to grow, like any business is going to want to, but I no longer base, my mood for the day on how many people were watching a particular live or watching a video anymore. Now it's gotten to the point where I don't have a theme to my social media. A lot of people have certain themes, what I eat in a day, water talks or whatever. No, I just post whatever the fuck I'm feeling that day. Like, I'll post things about being in Oklahoma. I post things about working out. I post things like lip syncing to stupid shit. I post things about funny things. I post things about there is no rhyme or reason. And I tell people, if you're looking for some kind of a theme or of a pattern, you're not going to get that from me. If you want just Sherry and whatever Sherry's feeling on any given day, then you're going to find that on my page or whatever. But I think that it takes work to be able to get to a point where you're not going to care as much. But it is something that does affect a lot of people who feel like they're not being, if you're in a live and somebody's not addressing you, it eats at their own self-esteem. They think something's wrong with them. And it just creates like this negative, toxic headspace, for us as people. And it really sucks because, like, I've always been a firm believer that everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves to have a voice and stuff. And so it sucks that people let the number of likes or view counts or whatever be an indicator on your value. That is not an indicator of your value whatsoever. And so I would love to get to a point where we can kind of show people how to overcome that. The number one negative of social media, and then I think that'll be the last topic for the night. Yes, Beth, we have a blast, and if you build it, they will come. And MOBA has 100% been growing on social media again, which has been filling my cup so fucking hard. The last negative impact of social media, and I think it's probably one of the biggest one, is the constant comparison to other people. I don't know how people can overcome that. Like, I don't know a concrete way. I would love to see if there's a way that we can help people on a grander scale to help combat that, because I think that's the biggest derailment of social media in general. I've seen it happen when I was on Instagram. I've seen it happen on Facebook. I've seen it happen on MySpace, like all social media platforms, not just TikTok. I think it's gotten far worse when TikTok came on because so many people were using it. But looking at somebody else's life, body, hair, figure, personality, wealth, whatever, we are constantly comparing ourselves to somebody else. Now, I know specifically in the bariatric community, it happens way too often. Somebody loses faster than somebody else. I must be a failure. I'm doing something wrong. Or this person has an hourglass shape and I don't. So there's something wrong with me. Why am I, what's wrong with me? And then you start self-deprecating on yourself. And I think it sucks because it makes you feel inadequate. And what's interesting is, like I said, I had bariatric surgery 10 years ago. I never knew what body dysmorphia was. I never thought about body. I didn't know what it was. So there was nothing. I never compared myself to anyone else. I had no one to compare myself to. So as I was getting the results, I was just naturally feeling good at whatever size I was. Every smaller size, I was becoming more confident and more excited. It wasn't until I came to TikTok and people were talking about body dysmorphia. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what that is. Like, I never dealt with that. And then all of a sudden, enough people are talking about it. And they're like, well, look, like, you know how so-and-so looks like this or whatever, and you don't. And you're like, well, I never really realized that before. Then all of a sudden, I started noticing that I was looking different in the mirror. I was seeing myself different in the mirror. And I'm like, so then I started to understand what body dysmorphia was. But had I not come to TikTok, I probably would have never experienced that. I experienced it because it was such a constant topic of conversation. It became constantly at the forefront of my brain. And then all of a sudden I started feeding into this mindset, and then I started playing it. And the one thing that I hate the most about this is that we do compare. And back in the day when we were all on our bikes and we were, playing outside and we didn't have social media, we compared ourselves to Cindy Crawford or Elle Macpherson or whoever the supermodel was at the time, or whatever actress that we looked up to. Like, yeah, I'll never look like that. But it was weird because I feel like we were able to justify it. Yeah, I'm not going to look like Elle Macpherson because I don't have millions of dollars and have a personal chef and a personal trainer and somebody who can just like feed me whenever I want. So it's kind of like, it's okay. Like, I'm happy with where I am because, yeah, if I had that kind of money, then yeah, maybe I can have those kind of results. Whereas we come to social media and now all of a sudden our next door neighbor is famous. Our next door neighbor has 10 million followers and she's getting all these endorsement deals and she's getting all of this and she looks a certain way. And then you start, well, now you can't blame it on being rich. You can't blame it on you're not Hollywood. Oh, thank God, Beth. I'm glad you know who Cindy Crawford is. Jesus fuck. You can't use that as an excuse anymore. Your neighbor's a regular person just like you. Like, you go to the same, PTA meetings and everything. So now you start second guessing your self-value because you're comparing yourselves to regular everyday people who are in the same struggles as you. And I think that single-handedly is probably the most toxic part of social media, is the constant comparing. And I do see that I've watched people firsthand start to have patterns of eating disorders because so-and-so is losing weight faster than another person, or so-and-so is looking better in a bathing suit, or then it became like this competition, and then there was like this constant need for plastic surgery and everybody was talking about plastics and fixing their body parts. And then you're looking at your ET deflated ass in the mirror and you're like, well, I would like to have that too. You're like, if they got to have it, I would like to have it too, but I can't have it right now. And I think that really starts to put us in a negative headspace because then we start self-deprecating. Then we start picking ourselves apart when we were never doing that before. Yeah, we're always going to have parts of us that we're not happy with or things that we would like to do better. But I find that we were, as a group, being more down and hard on ourselves than we ever were before, because we have all of these people to compare it to. And here's the thing that I tell people all the time, whether it's in weight loss, whether it's in financial goals or whatever, no two people are going to have the same results. You can have identical twins, and I've said this so many times, identical twins can have a bariatric surgery on the same day with the same doctor and have two completely different results. They have identical genes. They're still going to have different results. You can have identical twins, go to college, take the same classes, take the same tests, and get two completely different grades, get two completely different results. No two people are going to have the same exact results in whatever fashion that you are striving to be for, whether it's in a health and wellness journey or a financial or an economical or in a religious thing, whatever your things are, no two people are going to have the same results. There is nobody that you can ever compare yourself to. And if you ever find that you need something tangible to compare yourself to, you compare yourself to your reflection from yesterday. If your reflection from yesterday is better than you are today, then you just step up your fucking game and do something about it. If your reflection from yesterday is worse than where you are today, that means that you are doing something and you are bettering yourself for tomorrow. And I think that I didn't want, maybe I should have started with the negatives first and ended on the positive, because I don't want people to have like a false sense of that, like I'm just shitting on social media. Social media has changed my life in so many different ways. In some cases for the better, and in some cases for the worse. I am a different person because of social media. But I do think that over time, I have been able to drown out the negative aspects of it by focusing on more of the positives. I was someone at one point that was comparing myself to other friends and to other people, and I don't do that anymore. I don't want to be like anybody else. I do not want to have the same body type as anybody else. I've become comfortable with my body. And yes, are there things that I would like to improve? Yes. Is it to be like somebody else? No, it's because I have a vision now of what I would like to be, and I am working towards that. Um, I also find that I try to be, more vocal with what you see is what you get on social media. Anybody who's met me in person can attest to you. I am the same on social media as I am in person. I might be a little shyer and quieter in the beginning, but as far as my heart and who I am and what my morals are and what I stand for, that is not going to change whether I'm in front of a camera or not, whether I'm on this podcast or not. If we have a conversation one-on-one, it's going to be no different than when I'm having a conversation on a live or on a podcast or whatever. Like Beth said, it's finding a balance and filling your feed full of what is healthy. Your feed is going to be based on what you're searching for. So if you're searching for drama, you're going to be filled with drama. If you're searching for recipes, you're going to fill it with recipes. I've been searching more. I love stand-up. It just is something that puts me in a good mood. So I get a lot of stand-up and I get a lot of mindset. I get a lot of positive quotes. I get a lot of uplifting things to put up your britches and, keep pushing forward and everything. But the root of it for me is the community. Now I have two choices. I can go and search for other communities that, feed into the drama or the constant comparison or fat shaming other people or trying to tear others down. Or I can, focus on a community that is uplifting, that we are all in the same playing field together. We are all working together to better ourselves and do something positive, not just for our futures for tomorrow, but for those for around us. And so that's what I do. So on that note, I just hope that if you are going to be part of the social media world, and if we continue, TikTok can go away tomorrow at this point. Like, I'm not really too sure what the future holds, but I do know that I'm a different person because of it. And even though I have derailed from some of the negative aspects of it in the past, I have learned to navigate myself out of it and stop focusing on what other people are doing, what other people think, what other people feel or whatever, and focusing more on what am I getting out of it. I am getting community. I am getting support. I get educational content at times. I get a lot of stand up on mine, and I get a healthy plethora of resources that I would have never had otherwise. So I do hope for somebody watching this can resonate in some way and learn to not fixate on the negative aspects of social media. And if you're on the fence about joining social media, talk to people. You're not going to know until you give it a try. So on that note, we should be back hopefully next week. I don't know what the topic is yet, but I'm going to think of something. And also, if you are interested in being a guest on the show, I would love to hear your story. I want to give you guys a voice. I want to give you guys an opportunity to, share your story, your struggles, your journey, and what you're going through. And so, yeah, on that note, I hope you guys have the most amazing week and that I will see you next week or on social media if you follow me.